I want to put some protections in place to make sure that, my legacy endures.
So you do more than just small business too, though, because you have retainer clients, so I'm assuming you have.
When we think of small businesses, we think of them more as by the SBA definition. So a small business, a $35 million company could still be a small business. Right. So we work with from startups, and then on the
Rachel E. Bernier Green is a finance and operations strategist dedicated to helping purpose-driven businesses grow while creating lasting community wealth. With over 20 years of experience, including leadership roles at KPMG, PwC, and State Farm, she founded EJ Consortium to help organizations build scalable, profitable models that drive economic justice and social impact.
If a business has a mission orientation, that we want to help them with their finance and their operations to get the structure in place that will allow them to thrive. For our business owners, how their business is performing financially. We actually do quarterly assessments where we track how the entrepreneurs are doing. And then we also are tracking to see if the business is actually supporting their growth when you're in the creation stage of your business.
What's one mistake you see people make when they try to scale too fast?
Yes, I've made this mistake and I see it all the time with clients. The biggest mistake that I see is
Is your brand polished on the outside but messy behind the scenes? The logo is clean, the colors pop, but the messaging is confusing and the content is all over the place. And the conversions, they flatline because of that. That's what Thread Strategy steps in. We help purpose-driven brands clarify their voice, unify their visuals, and build strategies that actually work online and in real life. At Threya, strategy isn't an afterthought, it's the entire framework. We're not here to just sound good, we're here to build bold, integrated brands that shift culture and scale impact. So if you're done winging it and you're ready to build with clarity, confidence, and consistency, head to threastrategy.com. That's THREI strategy.com and book your brand clarity session today. Because good visuals are cool, but strategy, that's what scales.
Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of EJ Consortium, a finance and operations consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. Today, we are switching it up a little bit and changing the format. Instead of interviewing a guest, one of our podcast guests actually gave us the idea that we should have someone interview me and talk a little bit about my journey, how I got here, and why we created the podcast. So we have brought on a wonderful partner, Conchetta Woods. She is going to introduce herself and her business, and then she is going to help us jump into this new and exciting interview format for today. Conchetta, thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel so honored. This is really fancy, girl.
Oh.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to say that besides being an entrepreneur myself, I am Rachel's cousin. So if you guys pick up on the little banter that we have going, it's just familiarity. Don't worry about it. We'll keep you guys in our conversation.
Sounds good.
But my husband started a production media company, Dominion Design. He's been in business for 8 years. I've been helping out for the past 3.
That's gone by.
And really fast, right? So he started off with graphic design and freelance, and then he went into recording his own videos for his YouTube channel. And from there, he started doing photography with me and my mom with our consulting firm. And then he got really, really good at it. And he
Really,
started,
really good, y'all.
yeah, really good at it. And so he started his own social media marketing. And then he went from there. He said, I think I can scale this a little bit. And so now he does all corporate marketing. And now we're into the full entertainment. We do podcasting, brand videos, you name it. If you need to put your business out there, he has a camera in front of you and willing to record any and everything you have to say.
And we will link some examples of their work in the show notes for the podcast. Because if you are a small business owner and you need help with that side of your marketing, they do a phenomenal job. And I think that the videos and things that they've done speak for themselves. So I'll just include the link so you guys can check them out.
Thank you so much. That was really nice. I just help out a little bit, just a little bit.
Oh, understatement of the year.
Oh, man. So, are you ready to get started so that your listeners can get to know you?
Yes. And shout out to David. He'll be the podcast, I think, right before this, or maybe two before this, for the idea. And thank you for coming up with this intro game. I'm excited to play it.
Oh, this is going to be so fun. Okay, so this or that is the name of the game. So, you either choose which you prefer, the first option or the second. The only rule is if you can't choose, or if you choose both, you have to explain why.
Okay.
So these topics are going to be pertaining to entrepreneurship and finance. So first one is a startup or an established business.
Startup, hands down, no questions.
Kind of already knew that one. Okay. Bootstraps or venture capital.
Bootstrap.
Okay. Online business or brick and mortar.
Ooh, having done both, online business. I'm
You
just
know
getting
what? I feel like
flashbacks.
we'll get into that a little later in the interview. Stock market or real estate.
Ooh, that is a good one. Stock market, my first love.
Okay. Passive income or active income.
Active.
Okay. Networking events or online webinars?
Hmm. The introvert in me says the online webinars, but I enjoy the networking events. I'm a little bit drained and depleted after them. So, but yeah, networking events.
Yeah, I think COVID got us a little spoiled too with the online thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Business plan or going with the flow?
definitely business plan.
Agreed. Short term goal or long term vision?
Long-term vision.
Risk taker or risk averse?
Definitely risk taker.
Last month, financial freedom or job security?
Financial freedom.
Oh, hey, you did really good. No, like in between, no stopping. That was like, you
You
got
know,
it breeze right through.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about all of those things.
Experience is key. And I can say from the outside looking in, I've always known you to be like on top of your business. Little backstory growing up as kids, I remember you selling candy in high school.
Oh,
And
yes.
I was like, I went home and I told my mom, I was like, Rachel is rich. And my mom was like, "What?" I was like, "We gotta go to Sam's Club. I gotta get me a case of M&Ms. I'm selling candy Monday."
Ooh, yes. Yes.
So,
I've been selling things for a minute.
yes, you have. You have always been like the perfect little businesswoman. I've always pictured you with a briefcase. And so it's really interesting now to see the path from school,
Yes.
going into corporate, carrying a briefcase until now. So we're going to start from the beginning. How did you leave corporate? What made you leave corporate and venture off into your new business now?
So that I think to answer that question, I have to give a little bit of context about what led me to corporate. So in college, since my name is Rachel, it's a pretty common name. And so people would often call me Rachel and then use the abbreviations of this firm that I was all about because everyone's like, Rachel's going to graduate. She's going to go work at this firm. She's going to make partner by 35. Like that was the plan. There weren't really any questions. That's what I was going to do. And so, because I came into college knowing that that was my plan, I
Mhm.
went to the career fair freshman year when everybody told me none of those big firms give freshmen jobs. And I said, they might not have given you a job, but I'm going to go get a job. And so I went
Okay.
to the career fair and I still don't know exactly how I do it, but I did talk myself into an internship at the firm that I wanted to work at. And so I started interning it was one of the big four accounting firms. I started interning there after freshman year. And I actually had the opportunity because my boss was so happy with my work to become a telecommuting intern. So this is in the early aughts when, we were in college. And so I actually started telecommuting as an intern in 2006. And then I proceeded to work for that firm year round until graduation. And I burned out and actually thought, I'm going to go another path and accepted a job offer at a different firm. And then I went to grad school and somehow ended up back in corporate at another big four firm. So to answer your question of what made me leave, so for people who don't know what it's like to be at those firms, I would have busy seasons where I was billing in excess of 100 hours a week, which meant that I was at work around the clock. Sometimes I was at work for, 24, 30, 36 hours straight, taking a cat nap on my desk and then continuing to work.
What?
Yes, it was bad. We worked a ton of hours. The environment was also like really toxic, like to the point where I had partners that like would make jokes about slavery and I'd be the only Black person in the room. And so it just like got really out of hand. It was taking a toll on my health. And so I started baking just for stress relief. So like I would come home from work at a less busy time and get home at 9 o'clock and just start baking. And my husband is like, "What are you doing? You need to, like, you should be going to sleep, resting." But I was just baking because I needed an outlet from the stress of work. And so I kept doing that. I was not planning to start a business with it. It was purely for my own entertainment. But what actually led me out of the corporate career and making that transition was a couple things. One, my health. I started to get sick to the point that the doctors they thought that I might have lupus, where I was having like serious joint issues and things, and ended up needing to take a medical leave of absence. And when I took that leave, I thought that I was going to be going back to that job, but I actually never went back because I had been doing the baking as just like a fun side project before I got sick. I actually had the opportunity to do a pop-up shop in my neighborhood. And at the pop-up shop, which was the first ever event I did for that business, someone came in to try our stuff and then they left and they came back after trying the stuff they bought at the pop-up and said, "Hey, did you know Whole Foods is opening a store on the South Side? You need to get this stuff in it." And I laughed at that person because 'cause I'd never so much as worked at a restaurant, but it was the kind of confluence of those 2 paths. One, doing that pop-up shop while I was still working in my corporate career just as a hobby thing, and then getting
Right.
so sick that I didn't have a choice but to leave. Those 2 things are kind of what led to my exodus and then my decision to not go back.
Wow. Okay. That was quite a journey, I
It
must
was.
say. So from the outside looking in, it didn't seem that chaotic at all. Like you were doing everything and taking it in stride. And so for me, it was just like, oh, Rachel's just gonna start dominating the world now. And she's starting a bakery and of course she's going to Whole Foods like after baking a year and a half.
Yeah, I'm glad it looked, smooth on the outside. I always joke that it's kinda like that I feel like a duck sometimes, where I just look like I'm just gliding peacefully across the water, but, like, underneath the water, I'm just, like, paddling like crazy, that is what was actually happening. But I'm glad it
Yeah.
looked, yeah, peaceful and intentional on the outside.
For sure. So, pertaining to the bakery, when you actually had it a full-fledged business and you hired employees, uh, you developed a different passion from working within a community. So, can you expound on what you were feeling and what your experience was and why you felt like you had to go beyond the kitchen?
Yeah. So I actually was, even from the time when I was in college, I actually started a nonprofit when I was in college because I always had this desire to help people in meaningful ways. And I, for a while, thought that I had to do that outside of like my main career. And so I thought I would have a primary career and then I would find ways to give back outside of that. But I was introduced to the idea of social entrepreneurship my senior year in college. They had a program called the Social Entrepreneurship Summer Institute, SESI. And that was the first time I was introduced to businesses that had a dual purpose, that they were for-profit revenue generating businesses, but they also had a social or environmental mission. And so I got hooked on that idea from that point. So when I decided that I was actually going all in on the bakery, I knew that I did not want to bake just for the sake of baking, that I wanted there to be a greater mission. And so I landed on the idea that because baking was a skill that we could teach to people, even if they had no prior skill set, that we were going to make it our mission to hire reentering citizens, so people who had been in prison, had been involved in the justice system, and were chronically under or unemployed. And my premise was that eventually we would turn the bakery into an employee owned business. So we were going to create high quality jobs and eventually turn the employees into owners of the company. And that by doing this, we could change the trajectory of their lives because the data shows us that when people have better options, a lot of people will choose those better options. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that is how I landed on the idea. And I think what sparked that particular mission for me is that growing up, I had a friend at church, and both of her parents had been incarcerated. And her father died when we were young in a tragic car accident while he was helping people. And I will forever remember at his funeral services, one, I've never seen more people in attendance at a funeral service than I did for that man's funeral. And just looking at all the lives that he had impacted, and he was so open about his journey and where he'd been at his lowest points, and realizing that if no one had ever given him a chance, that these hundreds of people that showed up at his funeral, that their lives would have been different because they wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet him and the man that he became and the impact that he made. And I didn't realize it when I was a kid, how much that kind of stuck with me. But that's why I was so passionate about the mission and why we decided to go in that direction with the bake shop.
Wow. So through that mission, you've also created now your business that you have. And that transition, now I'm as reading your bio and reading up on the company, I was like, she kind of turned into the Avengers of social justice.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit about the mission, the business, its vision for moving forward, helping other entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So to get to that, the impetus, like what led me to really create this business was in a lot of ways the folding of the previous company, Lanes. And so Lanes was a partially a COVID casualty, but also in January of 2020, the ceiling caved in at our manufacturing facility. And so we were already in bad shape right before the pandemic hit. And so fast forward, we tried to hang on for about 2 years trying to work different things out. But when we finally were forced to close, one of the things that happened that I did not foresee is that over the course of time while we ran lanes, that we did not have anyone that was on our team who previously been incarcerated end up back in jail. But when the company closed, the people who were on payroll at that time who had previously been incarcerated, within a couple months, all of them were incarcerated again. And so it really drove home for me that the stakes are higher for mission driven businesses because when we close or when we are not thriving, that the impacts to people's lives are significantly higher than when business that doesn't have any, social or environmental purpose closes. And so I knew that some way I wanted to continue doing that work, but the other thing I knew from running a business is that I like geek out on finance and operations and accounting and building systems and building businesses. And I knew that for most of my entrepreneur friends, that was not the case. They would like to not have to do that part of their business at all. And so those two things made me think that maybe instead of starting another social enterprise myself, that a direct social enterprise, that I could start a firm that helps other business owners who have a similar mission. And when we mean, say, purpose driven, we mean anything, any business that is trying to have a net positive impact on society or the environment. So it could be you just want to create, high quality jobs, or it could be that you're, doing something like trying to become an employee owned company, or you are donating a percentage of your proceeds. But whatever it is, if a business has a mission orientation, that we want to help them with their finance and their operations to get the structure in place that will allow them to thrive and to really kind of deconstruct this idea that businesses that are operating with a purpose do not need to be profitable, that they need to be profitable to sustain their impact, and that we can help them build those systems. And so I took a little break after the previous business closed and I had my son. And when I came back, then I launched this company. And now we have a team of 7 people. We are here in the US servicing clients across the country. We have team members obviously here, but also in Venezuela, in Jamaica, in Nigeria. And we are all united around this mission of how can we empower other businesses that are out here trying to change the world.
Okay. All right. So, do you have an example of how that would work for a business that, they're just starting, they're not quite sure what steps
Mhm.
to take and how they would want to be that impactful. They just know they want to do something.
Yes, and I think I'm so glad you asked that because I think that that's one of the things that we've been trying to figure out how to communicate, that, like, you don't have to have a fully thought out impact strategy to be, to qualify to work with us. That we can help you determine as part of our onboarding process, we do like a values assessment with clients to help them determine how they can build a business that is best aligned with those values. And then when they think about the impact that they want to make, helping them to figure out how they can do that sustainably within their business model, or what tweaks they might need to make so that they can achieve the impact, be profitable, and thrive for a long term into the future. So sometimes this looks like, for example, we have small business owners who have been operating a business and they're ready to step back. And maybe they thought that their kids were going to step in and take over the business, but their kids weren't really interested in doing it. And so they have this business that they've scaled and poured their heart into, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do now? We might introduce those clients to the idea of doing a what's called an ESOP buyout, which is an employee stock ownership program, which is a way that they can actually sell the business to the employees to take over the business moving forward. There are a lot of tax advantages for the owner when they engage in that kind of sale, and also businesses that are employee owned, they tend to be more stable and more profitable and last for more generations in the future than businesses that are passed down within families, for example. And so, a big part of our job is helping people to reimagine what their impact could look like. So, if they don't know it right off the bat, we have a ton of ideas. They just come to us and we start with, what, is keeping you up at night when it comes to your finance and operations in your business? Like, what is causing financial anxiety? Where, is the operational chaos in your business coming from? And then where do you want to be at the end of the day? And if people have any idea about those things, we can help them come up with a roadmap to creating impact.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I know now people are all about like wanting to be entrepreneurs. They don't know what steps to take. And on top of it, social media is very overwhelming. So
Yes.
everybody feels like they have to have this. I got to have my page. I got to have my employees. I have to have this and this and this. So knowing that you started something that they're able to take it step by step, not become overwhelmed, and still be impactful is a great option to have. I
Yeah.
really think that's a beautiful thing. I wish I'd have called you a couple years ago.
I mean, but that's part of, because I've seen your entrepreneurial journey through your different ventures and so many entrepreneurial journeys. And that has really like powered why we show up the way that we show up. So we actually created a program called Bridge that helps people. It has 3 different sections. One is about finance and accounting, one is about operations, and then one is about community wealth building, which is more of the impact piece. And based on where people are when they start the program, we have 5 levels in each of those 3 pillars. We place them into a course based on where they're starting, and then they get courses that actually show them here are the things that you need to do in each of those areas in your business at this stage. And then here are the implementation steps. And then we actually have weekly office hours that they can come to where we help them with those implementation steps. So instead of people just learning something and then never implementing it, we're actually helping businesses to make meaningful strides in their business and providing them with the CFO and COO level support that our retainer clients get, but in a group setting so that the price point is more accessible. But we don't
That's
want people
beautiful.
wasting time like, what
Yeah.
do I do next? Or doing a lot of things that aren't necessary to start and then missing some of the more important things because we
Mhm.
see that all the time. And so creating programming like that has been one way that we really have been able to kind of change the game when it comes to how small business owners are supported and how they get direction about what to work on next.
Okay, so you do more than just small business too, though, because you have retainer clients. So I'm assuming you have larger corporate businesses as well.
So small businesses, when we think of small businesses, we think of them more as by the like SBA definition. So a small business, a $35 million company could still be a small business. So
Right.
we work with from startups, and then on the larger end, our companies are at the 10 million or early tens of millions down to startups is kind of the range that we work with.
Okay. And this is the last curveball I'm gonna throw you. So a company that has been around a little longer and they're in the tens of millions, right?
Hmm.
And you were talking about it being a family-owned business, and so they think that the next generation is gonna take the ball, and now they have to figure out the next steps, the next plan. What if they never thought of a business that'll be impactful socially? So do you strip it all the way down, like, forget about what we did in the '90s. We're gonna bring it back, we're gonna bring you a little more conscious forward, or do you guys just allow them to figure it out on their own?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have tried to be proactive on the front end when we're bringing clients in to really bring in clients that are values aligned, even if that's not how they did business previously. If they come to
Right.
us and say, "Hey, I am, trying to make a change, or I want to find a way to, you know, leave a legacy and create more impact as I'm transitioning out of my business," then we can walk them through what that looks like, but they don't have to, it doesn't have to be a company that was started to be a social enterprise. It could be a company that, the owner is saying, I've had this business 20 years, but now I want to do things differently. Or as I'm exiting it, I want to put some protections in place to make sure that, my legacy endures. But we have learned along the way to ask questions and make sure that we get that value alignment right when we bring on new clients, or we'll let them know that we may not be the best fit for them at this time.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that most people don't think about when they're building a business. They only think about the profit, right? How I'm gonna make
Hmm.
money. They're not thinking about the long-term goals.
Right.
And when we played the game, you said long-term vision over short-term goals. So
Yes.
I can see how that aligns perfectly with what you just answered. Okay. What's one mistake you see people make when they try to scale too fast?
Yes. So I've made this mistake and I see it all the time with clients. The biggest mistake that I see is not being willing to say no, or not having a strong enough strategic vision that you know when you need to say no. That oftentimes when people are, kind of a scarcity mindset and they're in a place where they just know that they need more revenue because they can't pay their bills, then they're just kind of grabbing. And whenever someone
Mhm.
presents them with an opportunity, even if it's not aligned with their strategic vision of where they want their company to go or what they want their work to look like, they just take it because they feel like they need it to stay afloat. And then when people do that, you can look up and you're like, wait a minute, now I've been in business 2 years and I've been spending, working all these hours. How come I'm not any closer to my goals? And you're doing all kind of work that you never intended to do, that you don't want to be doing. So, really knowing what your why is, why your business exists, and where you're trying to go, and then being willing to say no, like pays dividends because other people and their ideas can get you off track very, very quickly otherwise.
Yeah, and in the workforce, coming from working for somebody else and then working for yourself, we're kind of like programmed, right? We're programmed when they say like, "Oh, would you mind helping with this? Would you mind helping with that?" So as an employee, you're like, "Okay, it's just another thing on the task list," right?
Mhm.
So when you come out of that and you do something for yourself, you're just like, "I can't wait to run myself and
Yes.
say I'm the boss." But then you realize clients are still kinda like
Right. Exactly. You still have to answer to somebody at the end of the day. People are
Absolutely.
like, "I'm free," and I'm like, "Not not
No,
not
not really,
entirely."
you are, but no, if you wanna make money, you still gotta
Answer to
kinda
some people.
say
Mhm. Yeah.
so that's a great, tidbit take away from, "Listen, I understand you're ready to go to the next level, but how about we just work with your strong suits right now, focus on those, and make sure you focus on your why. Why you started
Yeah.
this? What's your purpose? What do you feel more comfortable with? Because, like you said, that mental health and that thing on your body wearing you out, you are your business.
Yes, and I think that is the I'm glad you brought that up because that's the second mistake that I see the most is that people do not properly value themselves within their business, both in
Mhm.
terms of how, they protect their health and their wellness because people get they buy into this hustle culture, sleep when you die, gotta go, 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 and the science tells us that that actually does not serve anyone well, that we don't do our best thinking or our best work when we're operating in that space, but people have bought into it where they feel like they have to it's kind of like the big lie of capitalism that you have to earn your rest, that you
Yeah.
don't deserve to take care of yourself until you've depleted yourself. And that is very much what we're trying to get our clients to realize they don't need to do. And it also shows up in how people end up pricing their services and products in their business. Because when you're not valuing yourself or your time that goes into creating your products and services, I often, when I first start working with clients, will see that the way that they have priced their products and services in their business will never be in alignment with the vision that they have for their business because that pricing
Say it.
can't get them there. It's not like they can just sell
Word.
more and get there. And so that's why we try to take a really holistic approach to valuing success at our company. Like, not only are we tracking, for our business owners, how their business is performing financially, we actually do quarterly assessments where we track how the entrepreneurs are doing from a wellness perspective. And then we also are tracking the impact that they're making. And we track their personal net worth to see if the business is actually supporting their growth and on the individual level and at the business level, because if you have a business and it seems like it's doing well, but you're not paying yourself because you
Yeah.
didn't build that into your pricing structure,
Yep.
that we have to nip that in the bud. That's not sustainable. And all of that comes back to, appropriately valuing yourself when you're in the creation stage of your business.
Okay. So what's one first simple step someone can take if they want to be a part of this shift?
Yes. So, a very easy step that people can take if they check out our website, and I'm not going to say it now because we are rebranding soon. So, we'll drop it in the show notes. That way we can easily update it. But you can
Okay.
click to schedule a call with us. And the first thing that you'll do is do a little quiz that helps you see kind of where you are with your business now. And then we can hop on the phone and you can tell us what's keeping you up at night, what your biggest dreams are, what your big, hairy, audacious goals are, and we can help you map out a plan to get there.
Okay, so talking about a shift, now we're here with the podcast name. So, what made you decide to start this podcast? And what do you see yourself doing with the future of this podcast?
That is a great question. So I, have been wiggling my way out of starting this podcast for years now. People have been telling me that the stories that I've shared and the experiences that I've shared that they are really compelling and that they really reach and connect with people in a way that it's hard to do in other mediums. And I'm constantly, meeting business owners who are inspiring me. And I really wanted to amplify their voices and their stories. Even with the first couple of companies that we have had on the podcast, as my team was helping prepare for those interviews, they're like, "Where did you find these people?" And I'm like, "These are my friends. They're my friends. They're going to come on and talk about these amazing transformational things that they are working on and how their businesses have just created catalytic impacts in their neighborhoods and in society in so many ways." And I really wanted to share those examples because I think a lot of people get the idea that if your business has a purpose or orientation, if you're purpose driven, that you cannot be profit driven at the same time. And I think that it's a false dichotomy that you don't have to choose either or. Often some of the things that you do in the pursuit of purpose can actually make you more profitable. And so we help people find those win-win solutions, not I want to make an impact at the expense of having a sustainable, financially thriving business. And so, yeah, I wanted to share more of these stories. I think people can't strive for things that they can't imagine. And my hope is that as I have more guests on and people hear about their journeys, their struggles, how they've overcome different things and the impact that they've created, they can realize, hey, you know what? I can do that too. And so we're going to be digging into that in the podcast and also getting into some of the nitty-gritty things between, decisions that people have to make and how you navigate some of the hard choices when you are trying to build a business with intention. And so that's what we've started doing, and we are hopeful that we will reach many business owners who are inspired to take that next step, or they get an answer to a question that they've had, figure out how to do something better, or just leave inspired and motivated to know that their business can also change the world.
Yeah, so, as entrepreneurs, we always think we're the only crazy person in the world, right? So I must
Absolutely.
say, listening to the first episode, I was just like, "You know what? I'm not that myself."
You're not by
And
yourself.
it's
Yes.
very refreshing to hear other business owners talk about their journey, how they got started, the many obstacles that they faced.
Many. Yes.
And it may look clean and polished right now, but trust me, we had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. You
Mhm.
just learn how to pull up from the bootstrap and keep going. Yeah.
Yes.
So, somebody that's listening to this podcast, what is the one thing you would want them to take away from this?
I want them to walk away knowing that it is possible to create a profitable and impactful business and to walk away with the idea that their business, no matter what industry it's in, can be one that actually changes the world. And I don't use that lightly. Like you can see some of the books behind me. I'm a big history buff. And when I was creating this company, I was studying actively like what business movements and labor movements around the world have actually shifted economies to a place where there is less wealth inequality, that people and families are able to thrive in an economy that really works for the working people. And we are taking everything that we have learned, that we have seen work both here and globally in current times and in historical times, and are really building out programs and services to help people embody the things that have been successful in creating better economies and shifting economies in the past.
Wow. That is awesome. So, is there anything else you would like to leave with your future listeners and telling them to follow, subscribe, listen?
Absolutely. Well, first, I want to thank you so much for coming up with such great questions in the game. It was really exciting to kind of share behind the scenes look at how I landed here and help some of the new listeners who to kind of give them an introduction to our company and the work that we do. And for all of the listeners out there, I hope that this was another reminder that you don't have to choose between doing good and doing well, that you can build responsibly, scale responsibly, build wealth while closing wealth gaps, and create thriving businesses that uplift communities. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you get your podcast, and join us next time as we continue exploring what's possible when business becomes a force for justice, sustainability, and profit. And remember that the future of business isn't just about what you build, it's about who you become in the process and who you bring along with you. Until next time, keep shifting. See you guys soon.